What would you do if you were invited on a blind date, only to realize it was never real, but a cruel prank? What if you were made the joke in front of everyone, while your heart was quietly breaking? Most of us would run, hide, and carry that wound forever. But for one young woman humiliated in the cruelest way, what happened next was something nobody in that room could ever forget. Because in the middle of her pain, a man with power, dignity, and secrets of his own, stood up, and did something so unexpected that it silenced the entire crowd. This is her story. Stay with me till the end, you won't forget it. Amara wasn't the kind of girl who usually said yes to blind dates. Her life was simple. She worked in a small bookstore, shared a tiny apartment with her cousin, and carried the quiet weight of being the girl people overlooked. She wasn't rich, she didn't wear designer clothes, and she was too soft-spoken to command attention in noisy rooms. But her heart was genuine, and when her friends persuaded her to go on a blind date claiming they'd found someone special for her, she allowed herself to believe, just for once, that maybe fate was being kind. The cafe was buzzing with life that afternoon. Golden sunlight streamed through tall glass windows, filling the place with warmth. Amara arrived early, nervously adjusting her simple dress, her palms damp with anticipation. She wanted to look nice, but she didn't own much beyond modest clothes. She kept telling herself that if this man truly wanted to meet her, he'd see past appearances. But as the minutes ticked by, her stomach twisted. At the table across the room, she noticed her so-called friends whispering, giggling, their phones in hand as they filmed. It didn't take long for the truth to hit her. They hadn't set her up on a real date. They had set her up as entertainment. The man she was supposed to meet never existed. She was the joke. Her cheeks burned. She wanted to disappear. She stood up to leave, but laughter rippled from their table, sharp and humiliating. One of them called out loudly, "So, how's your big date, Amara? Did your Prince Charming get lost?" The cafe's atmosphere shifted, and strangers began to glance curiously at the scene. Amara's throat ached as tears threatened to spill. She grabbed her bag, ready to escape. But just as she turned, the door opened. A tall man in a dark blue suit stepped in. He looked like he didn't belong there, not with his commanding presence, not with the way conversation seemed to pause at his arrival. His sharp eyes scanned the room, and then they landed on her. In that instant, everything changed. He walked straight to her table as if it had been planned. The pranksters stifled their laughter, confused. Amara froze, her heart pounding. She didn't know him. She didn't even know why he had stopped in front of her. But before she could ask, his deep, steady voice broke the silence. "Sorry I'm late," he said, pulling out the chair across from her and sitting down with complete confidence. "I hope you didn't wait too long." Gasps rippled through the cafe. Her friend's smirks faltered. Amara sat in stunned silence, her heart torn between disbelief and confusion. She whispered, "I think you're mistaking me for..." But the man leaned forward, his eyes locking on hers with something that looked like kindness, even protection. "I'm not mistaken. I'm right where I need to be." The cafe was suddenly quiet, as if the world itself had stopped to watch this unexpected scene. And for the first time in her life, Amara felt seen. His name was Adrian Cole. To the world, he was known as a ruthless CEO who had built a billion-dollar company from the ground up. To himself, he was a single father trying to raise his little daughter after losing his wife years ago. Adrian was not the kind of man who walked into a random cafe to play games. He didn't waste words, and he didn't tolerate cruelty. And when he entered that cafe, he hadn't planned to interfere. But the sight of Amara, her trembling hands, her tear-filled eyes, and the mockery swirling around her ignited something in him. He had seen enough humiliation in life to know what it could do to a soul. He couldn't walk away. The pranksters whispered frantically, trying to laugh it off. Who is he? Did she actually know him? One muttered. Another hissed, this wasn't part of the plan. But Adrian ignored them. Instead, he turned to Amara with a calm, protective smile. I've been meaning to ask you something, he said, his voice carrying across the room. Her eyes widened. What? He stood up, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a small velvet box. A hush fell over the cafe. Everyone's eyes were glued to the scene. Amara's heart stopped. This couldn't be real. Adrian knelt down, his tailored suit brushing the floor, and opened the box to reveal a glistening diamond ring. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. The prankster's laughter evaporated completely, replaced by pale shock. Marry me, Adrian said firmly, his voice echoing with conviction. Amara's entire body trembled. I don't understand. Why? Because you deserve to be loved in a way that leaves no room for doubt. Because no one should ever make you feel small. And because sometimes life brings two broken pieces together to make something whole again. Tears spilled down her cheeks. For a moment, the entire cafe seemed to hold its breath. Then, softly, almost in disbelief, she whispered, yes. The cafe erupted into applause. Strangers stood up, cheering, while the pranksters lowered their heads, humiliated in their own trap. They had wanted to break her. Instead, they had witnessed the birth of something extraordinary. Adrian stood, slipping the ring onto her trembling hand, and pulled her close. You're safe now, he whispered, a promise only she could hear. From that day on, Amara's life was never the same. The girl who had been mocked for being ordinary was chosen, not out of pity, but because a man with power, scars, and a heart of his own saw in her something rare: courage, kindness, and worth. What started as a cruel joke ended as a love story that silenced every voice of mockery. And maybe that's what life is about, learning that you are worth far more than the world sometimes makes you believe. Because when the right person sees you, no lie, no cruelty, no pain can erase your worth.